we're close enough, we're gonna go ahead and get started. So I'm gonna call to order this special meeting of the USD 417 Board of Education. The first item is approval of the agenda. And just as a reminder, since this is a special meeting, no additions or changes can be made to the agenda. So this evening's agenda includes business items, approve the nurse's aides, approve the instructional coach, and executive session for personnel. If I could please get a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Madam President, I move to approve the agenda as presented. A second.
It's been moved by Kelsey, seconded by Patty to approve the agenda as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I did want to denote Jamie's not here this evening, just so that's in your minutes. She's at the strategic plan for the hospital. So the very first item, Mrs. Meyer, approve the nurse's aides and nurse.
I sent you an email, budget projections and estimated increased costs for next year. I feel that we're sitting in a fairly decent place to be able to re-employ all our nurses and nursing aides and put them on our regular payroll.
And just so everyone is aware, just prior to the meeting this evening, Nurse Reddick did send out an entire list of duties as we asked for. So I think at this time, the recommendation from Mrs. Meyer is to approve the current nurses' aides and nurse positions as we have them. So I would entertain that motion.
So moved.
Is there a second? Kelsey? It's been moved by Terry, seconded by Kelsey. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Nurse Reddick, for your information. The next item is approval of the instruction coach.
I've talked to most of the administrators in our administrative meeting about the need for instructional coaches. What happens is we have a good need for, what do I want to say, retention would be number one, but teachers that are in their initial license, maybe they have 2 years of college and they're working through one of the colleges to fulfill their licensure. We have some long-term subs that are filling in for us from time to time. First and second year teachers also receive instructional coaching help. I recommend that we hire Sarah Malcolm, currently our senior high school, junior high English teacher, to be our instructional coach for 2024-25.
And if I understand right, just for clarification, we had asked whether ESSER funds were being used to fund this position.
Not 100%, but yes, I think 25% of ESSER was funding our instructional coach.
And then at-risk and general fund, we're taking up the rest of that.
And this could be paid 100% by at-risk.
Okay. So the recommendation at this time from Mrs. Meyer is to approve Sarah Malcolm as our instructional coach.
And I don't think any of us were opposed to either of those last time. We just wanted to know, that the funds were available and where we were on that.
Yes.
So, I mean, if that's been, looked into and feel like that's.
We are
a good place
mandated
there.
each year now to transfer money into at-risk funds that we receive from the state. And we currently have, at this time of the year, we still have $1 million left in our at-fund account that we can carry over, plus we'll get new additional funds for next year.
And I just want to reiterate what Dr. Alderman was saying, is that we just had questions about where the funding was coming from and where those positions were currently being paid out of. So our recommendation from Mrs. Meyer is to approve Sarah Malcolm as the instructional coach.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Patty, moved by Jay, seconded by Patty. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The next item is an executive session.
Madam President, I move we go into executive session to discuss an individual's employee's performance pursuant to non-elected personnel exemption under COMA for 20 minutes with the board with the opportunity to call Mrs. Myers as needed.
Is there a second? Sorry.
Second.
It's been moved by Kelsey, seconded by Donnie, that we go into a 20-minute executive session for personnel pursuant to the non-exempt under COMA for 20 minutes with the board and the ability to recall Mrs. Meyer as necessary. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries, and there will be no action after this. So, and time will start once we get the recording stopped, into the waiting room and clear the room. We're back in open session.
And we are going to go into an executive session. Madam President, I move we go into an executive session to discuss an individual employee's performance pursuant to non-elected personnel exemption under COMA with the board and the opportunity to call Mrs. Meyer as needed, but we'll start with Mrs. Meyer,
Correct.
okay, for 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right, moved by Kelsey, seconded by Donnie, executive session for 10 minutes for personnel for the non-elected personnel exemption under COMA with Mrs. Meyer and the board. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We will need an additional executive session.
Madam President, I move we go into executive session to discuss an individual employee's performance pursuant to non-elected personnel exemption under COMA with the board and Mrs. Meyer for 10 minutes.
And I need, moved by Kelsey, seconded by Jay, that we go into a 10-minute executive session for personnel for 10 minutes to discuss an individual employee's performance pursuant under the exemption for non-elected personnel under COMA. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And we do need an additional executive session.
Madam President, I move we go into executive session to discuss an individual employee's performance pursuant to non-elected personnel exemption under COMA for 5 minutes with the board and Mrs. Meyer.
Patty, it's been moved and seconded that we go into a 5-minute executive session to discuss an individual employee's performance pursuant to non-elected personnel exemption under COMA for 5 minutes with Mrs. Meyer and the board. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
More of them?
With nothing further to discuss, we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye, Terry.
you.
CTV.
Keating.